Foot goody. Foot goody. Not even 2 p.m., baby. Not even 2 yet. Lots of time. Yo, what up, the villain? Sure be nice to start the stream with a song, bro, but I literally can't even think about... I mean, even music that says it's like copyright free gives me a freaking copyright strike, dude. They're taking all me money. Beautiful day over here today, man. 50 degrees for the first time this spring. I'm up and at 'em, ready to rock and roll today. We could potentially stream for a nice little hour here, and then I'm going to play drums, pray with the cats, work out. I'm going to make today count. I'm going to make today count big time. You don't need it, the villain. Let me tell you what, I have been on some OnlyFans in my day. But right now, I don't even have an account. Not following any thotties on Instagram. Despite yesterday being not a great day, I did manage not to crank it. And today's day 2. Feeling pretty solid so far. Didn't wake up with a morning wood or anything like that. I think I'm ready to knock it out of the park today. Kitties are looking positive. Found another cool band last night called Ride. Life has its ups and downs, baby. Found a really nice philosophy channel last night. And I kind of honed in on Friedrich Nietzsche. And though obviously I don't agree with him on everything, I did find his perspective pretty useful.
Look at that sailboat right there. I'm going.
Unfollow. Oh, we don't need no simping. We don't need to be simping. George Costanza, the villain. There's gonna be a moment of truth for this stream, gang. Moment of truth. All the boxes are checked today, or everything's looking like it's gonna be a solid day. But I told myself last night that the success of this stream today is going to determine how I move forward. So no pressure. It's just that if nobody shows up today, I'm not going to stream all week. Because you're blowing it. I'm leaving it up to fate. Leaving it up to fate. And we're only like, what, 7 minutes in the stream and I'm already saying this, so. I don't know, boyos. What's it gonna be, buddy boyos? In this video, ugly men get gaslit and disrespected. Yo, it's already tapering off at 3:48. Man, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. But if a few people show up, yeah, I want to talk about Nietzsche. Whoa, kitty war. Careful, footy. They say in philosophy, a good place to start is pick one philosopher, and it doesn't even really have to be somebody you agree with. Pick one philosopher and, like, go deep on him. But what I'm finding is some of these YouTube channels that, you know, just kind of, like, teach you philosophy, they do a lot of the work for you, man. I mean, you could always, you know, read the books and go deeper, but Weltgeist. I found this channel last night, Weltgeist, and I watched quite a bit of his videos on Nietzsche. Read Nietzsche, bucko! Well, it's interesting that he says that. I mean, and I'm saying it now too, and people who have read Nietzsche will be like, whoa, dude, that's pretty radical, because he was very anti-Christian. But it's just getting his perspective, you know, like, learning a lot about someone who you disagree with isn't necessarily like a bad thing. So here's some of the main points I got about Nietzsche. He liked the Renaissance. I mean, first of all, he was not a fan. He had a lot of negative things to say about a lot of people. He more often than not, he tore something down and talked crap about philosophers. He didn't like Schopenhauer. He didn't like Kant. But it's relevant about him not liking Kant. This thing about him not liking Germans is really funny, because I feel like it kind of leads to a certain German who, you know, this German actually spoke very highly of Nietzsche. But I wonder what Nietzsche would have thought about this particular German. So Nietzsche liked the Renaissance because he believed that they were in the process of trying to destroy Christianity. He talked about the corruption in the papacy at the time. I believe that was around the time of the Medici family. There was a very wealthy, worldly family taking control of the papacy. And he loved it. and I couldn't help but laugh because he basically he liked the establishment. I mean, he like this kind of like anti-Christian establishment that we perceive. Nietzsche basically seems to root for it and to like it. And now he talks about how Germans continue to save Christianity, which he doesn't like. So the first German to save Christianity was Martin Luther, creating the Protestant Reformation. And, anybody out there who's a Catholic would definitely need to wrestle with these ideas. Now, I don't think he took into account orthodoxy. It would be interesting to learn about orthodoxy around the times of, the Medici popes in the early Renaissance. But in a time when the popes were arguably the most corrupt, that was about the time that Martin Luther took a stand. And Nietzsche said that Luther's Christianity was a lot more irrefutable, and he didn't like that. He thought that the direction the Medici family was taking the Catholic Church, they were basically going to paganize and destroy Christianity. He thinks that Christianity would have died if it wasn't for the Protestant Reformation, and he wanted Christianity to die. His views on Christianity is like, who I think maybe read Nietzsche was Southern Israelite. Because it sounds a lot like what Southern Israelite says. You guys, there are two positions to take in history. Most of the religions being on one side, and then basically atheism, and then maybe a few kind of like harder material worldviews being on the other side. And Platonism is a very good overview of most of these metaphysical religions. So on one side, you have basically the Platonist side that believes in metaphysical concepts like the good, being. Basically, they deny the world. They have a metaphysical view that denies the world and strives to the good beyond the material. So things like who has the most money, who's in charge, will to power. Will to power is a Nietzschean idea that is very material. In fact, it's on the opposite team. Nietzsche tried to extrapolate on top of the opposite team that all that matters is the will to power, material gain, material control. And him, just like Southern Israelite, views this Platonist view of striving to the beyond, striving beyond the material in this realm where morals exist. These Christian morals, like you should not trample the weak and treat your neighbor like you treat yourself, mercy, pity. These come from a realm beyond material. And Nietzsche thinks that realm is mental illness. So I think it's very important to kind of get a grasp on these concepts, because then you start to think, is Southern Israelite trying to kind of create this like Nietzschean Christianity? Is he trying to kind of create, he wanted to expunge the Platonism out of Christianity. And what I feel like I'm starting to realize is that it doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry, that goes for Jeem as well. Like, he's trying to continue this idea that, atheism is Platonism. No, I don't think so. Like, I really just want to sit there, not even in a debate context, like, just from the ground up, explain to me how Christianity is different than Platonism. And it's because Plato, I believe, was a good philosopher who ultimately was inspired by, like Alexandrian teachings or Pythagoras, and Pythagoras likely learned his teachings from, like, Alexandria. I'm starting to talk about how, like, Hinduism is similar to Christianity. If we're just going to talk in layman's terms here, It strives beyond. Jesus said not to be of the world. Now, it doesn't sound Platonist because I believe Christianity is a ripoff of Platonism. It's just what Jesus said. These are the two teams of history. You either strive beyond the material, and that's where these ideas of morals come from. Because if it's just material, then, trample the weak, the rich are in control, will to power, and that's all that matters. And I'm very much not on that team. I'm going all in on striving beyond. And it does kind of sound like Platonism. And I don't see it, dude. Like, obviously I got indoctrinated by Southern Israelite at one point, but yeah, I don't see it, bro. He's trying to create this like Nietzschean Christianity, which is basically Judaizing. And then it's like, okay, well, the Jewish religion is more material. Like, everything's more grounded in material, and then you could try to use that to explain why, like, maybe they did better than Christians. So this stuff isn't rocket science. Like, this is stuff that we've heard before. Christians look beyond the world. They're thinking about the floaty place that they're going to go to when they die. They don't care about amassing material wealth. They strive for something beyond. And people on the Nietzschean side think that the beyond is mental illness. He hates Plato. He hates Socrates. Now, there was a pre-Socratic philosopher named Thucydides or something. I'm not so good at pronouncing his name. But he had a quote that the strong do what they can and the weak endure what they must. And Nietzsche loved him. Nietzsche loved everything he was about. He was a leader in Athens. And when the Athenians invaded these people, he explained, like, they wanted to have a debate. It's like, let's debate the morals of, like, why should you invade us? And he simply explained, it's like, you should surrender to us because we're stronger than you. And if you don't, it's going to bring harm to your people. So it's almost like mocking philosophy. They roll up on this, like, weaker society, and it's like, hold on, thou! Like, why dost thou deserve? Why shouldst thou rule over our people? Oh, because if thou puts up a fight against us, we will harm you. We will bring harm to your people because we are stronger than you. Therefore, you should submit to us. Because we dost arth going to kill all of you if y'all dost thou not submit. It's like, his philosophy was basically anti-philosophy. So all of Drake's stuff about mentally masturbating and, nutty mysticism and Platonism, he's trying to rescue the Bible from Team Beyond. There's Team Beyond, and then there's Team Material. Nietzsche sounds a lot like Southern Israelite, where he loves Team Material. So his perspective of history is that he thinks that the Renaissance was preparing to destroy Christianity. He's basically identifying this elite that we're always talking about. He's like, they were accelerating art. They were starting to have a value in beauty. He talks about, like, pagans had more of a value in beauty because they were more materialist. Now, probably what you'd find if you dig deeper into pagan religion is, I think there's all kinds of pagan aspects that strive to the beyond as well. And then you go in this circle where Neoplatonism and Platonism is basically a kind of pagan philosophy. And, Plato used Hellenic religion to illustrate his points. So Nietzsche definitely had some disagreements on things, but it's not even so much that it was pagan. It's not that the elite in the Renaissance were pagan. It's that they were material and they were preparing for the destruction of the church, and they had subverted the papacy. But Martin Luther identified it, and he standed against it, and that basically rescued Christianity. So then the next German to save Christianity was Kant, Immanuel Kant. Now, this is really interesting because Kant is like arguably one of the most difficult philosophers to understand, you know? And it's funny when you get to the bottom line of Kant because he's an idealist, and I can kind of start riffing on his philosophy just from the title of his book. A very difficult, complex book with a lot of jargon in it. The Critique of Pure Reason. So, what's my understanding of the Critique of Pure Reason? He was in the 1800s when the Enlightenment had accelerated, and this force that Nietzsche identified that was basically trying to move beyond Christianity. The only reason it was still alive, according to Nietzsche, is because of the Protestant Reformation. Because these Renaissance elite had basically circled the Catholic Church and were in the process of destroying it. So now reason in the Enlightenment had started to accelerate, and we're in a time where reason was getting ready to overcome faith. But then you have Immanuel Kant with the Critique of Pure Reason. Why should we not just get on the back of reason like a horse and just ride into the sunset? Because he started getting into these ideas that our reason is flawed and we are people, and there are things that maybe, you know, like there's a truth out there, there's an objective truth, and then it comes into our head, and when it goes through all these filters and goes into our brain, there's something flawed about our pure reason that's not allowing us to understand the truth. So that's where you start actually getting into his philosophy. I mean, somebody who really knows this book, like somebody who like writes dissertations on the Critique of Pure Reason, you know, I mean, they could just go on and on and on and on and on. There's all kinds of jargon in there that I tried to memorize in the past and I didn't go deep enough. But that's basically it. Critiquing pure reason. And even if people who follow Kant don't know it, because I know people who are like eliminative materialists who teach philosophy who seem to really like Kant, but they're actually atheists. But that's kind of what I said is, you know, it's very beneficial to learn from a philosopher who you don't agree with. Like, I'm having all these profound insights from studying Nietzsche last night. And I think going to this channel, Weltgeist, and just watching all of his videos on Nietzsche, I mean, would it be better to read Nietzsche's books? Sure, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot from just watching this guy's videos, man. He's a great teacher. So Immanuel Kant halted the process of reason stifling Christianity, and once again, a German protected Christianity. And, you know, Nietzsche is seething. He's like, ah, damn you Germans. And, like, you keep saving Christianity from being destroyed. Now, I don't know if he's right about that. It makes me want to go study. Because I've heard about these popes. I've heard about the Medici banking family. And it really starts to make you wonder, bro. The Jesuit, it makes you start to wonder if the Jesuits really just always were corrupt. Because by the time the Protestant Reformation came up, it sounds like, yeah, the church had basically been subverted by these mercantile powers. And now my commentary is that they're trying to do it again. The elite was already trying to destroy Christianity way back in the Renaissance, bro. That was the mercantile powers pushing people into the cities after the, you know, medieval feudal system under the Catholic Church. It was like the takeover of the mercantile class, and they were trying to kind of like groom society towards a new way of being. And the Protestant Reformation stopped it. Now, I had already said about the Protestant Reformation that, I mean, I usually don't stomp it all out, be like, oh, you know, Luther's an idiot. Luther's the biggest, dumbest idiot in history, and everything about it was stupid, and I can't, like, you know. It's more like what the Protestants have become. Because you'll hear a lot of people say that the original Lutheran Church was really just trying to reform Catholicism to the level where it was just kind of going back to like real Catholicism. Now, that's probably not exactly true, but it did kind of like, basically the way to hell is paved with good intentions. So I've never really said that I thought the Reformation in itself was completely retarded. I think it probably happened for good reasons. Even though now I'm to a point where I think I side with the Catholic Church, but I don't know, man. I'm basically like looking for sparring partners in philosophy. I'm allowing my worldview to be put under the microscope, man. And if my worldview is strong, it will survive. It will just survive like deepening my philosophical worldview. So then I started to wonder, it's like, okay, Nietzsche doesn't like Germans who rescue Christianity. Well, gee, maybe there's another German who ironically was inspired by Nietzsche. Now, people would absolutely flip out if I tried to imply that this German was trying to rescue Christianity. But as far as rescuing tradition, or maybe taking a stand for tradition, maybe whether or not he even knew it, or maybe it's like he was going head to head with these same powers that were seeking to destroy Christianity. I'm talking about Hitler, bro. The Germans who pissed off Nietzsche, Martin Luther, Immanuel Kant, and then, when did Nietzsche die? Let's look that up. Oh yeah, August 25th, 1900. So he was long gone. But Hitler was inspired by Nietzsche, the Übermensch. And I basically think like I'm kind of like an Übermensch. I'm basically trying to live like an Übermensch. Now, I was also studying Nietzsche's book, The Antichrist, where Nietzsche actually liked Jesus. He thinks that people were misunderstood about Jesus. Which, you know, I'm not getting carried away with and I disagree with. See, this is where I think Nietzsche's confused, because he's claiming that Jesus was teaching a way of life to live. And that's ultimately my argument in favor of Orthodoxy and Catholicism over Protestantism. Catholics are basically holding you to the teachings of Christ, like basically punishing you if you don't live that way, or kind of like guilting you into living that way. Whereas Protestants have honed in on the substitution, the penal substitution and the atonement, and that, you know, by having faith in Jesus, you are saved. Now, there's also faith in the Catholic Church, but there's an emphasis on works, where you need to try to live this way of life. So that's one of the places where I think Nietzsche is a bit confused. Are there people listening to this, dude? Anyway, I'm gonna leave this up. I'm gonna label this accordingly and leave it up and use a better thumbnail, because this is one of those live streams. I'm gonna start cleaning house on some of my old VODs. I'm gonna kind of go through my old live streams and kind of try to leave some of the more important live streams up. But yeah, you know, the whole we need to remove Platonism from Christianity that Southern Israelite is all about, and then it seems kind of like Jeem. I mean, dude, you know who he needs to debate is an Orthodox theologian like Jay Dyer. Because, first of all, Plato was very important in the church. Like, oh my gosh, it's right there. You know, Augustine used to be a Platonist, and you kind of see it in his theology, but there's this dichotomy of history, and you could almost even just describe the metaphysical side as Platonism, because Plato claimed that there's something beyond the material and it's better. And Jesus claimed that there's something beyond the material and it's better. And I mean, just being simple and not even exhausting all the points, you know, Jesus said, do not be of the world. Someone who's on team material, someone who's on the Nietzschean side, believes all there is the world, and then there's will to power, and all that really matters is dominance. So then I'm a bit confused on why Nietzsche likes the teachings of Christ. I mean, he seems to think that people were confused and that they used the story of Christ for control, but I'm not really sure where he would be getting that. So then I watched a video on Freud. Freud didn't like religion, and he says that this oceanic feeling that mystics tap into, that people who have these like divine experiences, nuns, priests, mystics, like when you're having this like divine experience in meditation or something, or in prayer, Freud says that like you're tapping into your childhood, and it's the feeling that you had as a child before your ego differentiated from the world. He says that children are just kind of a part of this sea of consciousness, and, you know, they feel protected. Basically just complete speculation. But Marx, Freud, and Nietzsche, that's like the elite three, dude. Those were like the first three philosophers that very blatantly on the surface wanted to stamp out Christianity. And if you're somebody who has doubts, if you have doubts, oh, am I an idiot, dude? Did I not spell it right? Cool, dude. All right, well, I'll tell you what. You helped out, little buddy. I copy-pasted. You helped out, little buddy. If you're someone that has doubts, look up Karl Marx's critiques of Christianity, watch videos about it, watch videos about Nietzsche and Christianity, and watch videos about Freud and Christianity, and see if your faith can survive that. That was the trinity of commentators, philosophers who started turning people against Christianity in public. But when you come up to this idea of the mercantile class, it seems like they had already wanted to remove Christian influence from society in the Renaissance. And maybe arguably Luther saved that. Luther stopped them. And then Kant also held it back. You know, Luther held it back. Kant held it back. Maybe on some level, Hitler held it back. But now here we are. In the modern world, clearly everything is sinking into degeneracy. And, you know, some people try to say it's like the Christian elite that's doing this, but no, the colleges, the universities are run by people who want to do away with Christianity. I mean, we have a system that runs on Freudian psychology, and Freud hated religion. We got, basically Marxists in the schools. Karl Marx didn't like Christianity. We got Freudian psychology. Freud didn't like Christianity. Our system is basically fueled by intellectuals who didn't like Christianity. Apparently, German blood is what keeps Christianity alive, but Nietzsche thinks it's a mistake. Nietzsche thinks it's these, idiots, like the enlightened will to power elite who are in charge because they're the best and they understand the material pursuit of wealth. They're about to save people from knuckle dragging Christianity, and then some German idiot comes in. Hey, you guys! Like, oh gosh, here comes this German idiot, and then he keeps Christianity alive for another 500 years, and it's halting progress. So, good stuff to think about. And then something tells me that Southern Israelite has read a lot of Nietzsche. And he's trying to run Christianity through this Nietzschean filter. But it doesn't work. Jesus basically sounded similar to a Platonist. But I think that Platonism is just a good summary of this idea of the beyond. The good beyond the matter. Kind of like turning it into a philosopher religion. I mean, is there really a realm of forms? I don't think that, but I think that there is a good to strive to beyond the material. It's simple, guys. There's two. This is what I came up with last night, and I mean, these are the teams of history. You're either Nietzschean will to power, hard material, or metaphysical. Morals, good, something beyond, afterlife, God, things are not what they seem. And yeah, Nietzsche's rants are very much like Southern Israelites, where what do you get with mysticism? You get guys who are smug, even though they don't have any money, they don't have women, they don't have material influence. They read books about trying to stare into this abyss and strive beyond. They spend their life mentally masturbating about a realm that doesn't exist, and they don't produce things, and they go into the monasteries and meditate, and they're nuts. And they're completely nuts. Like, these material people are disgusted by mystics because they're nuts, and they don't produce, and they're not good for society, and they resent the elite. So I've even gotten to a point where it's like, I see these Western philosophers honing in on Christianity, and then it's like, well, you know what? Hinduism and Eastern spirituality, as I've been saying, makes a lot of these same points. So it kind of backs up Christianity's points. It's like, well, Christians aren't the only people who see it this way. But Nietzsche also didn't like Buddhism. So, beginner philosophy, bro, this channel, Weltgeist. I found this channel last night. Weltgeist. Weltgeist, one word. I basically watched most of his videos on Nietzsche. And this guy's just he's a really good teacher, man. when you find a really good philosophy channel like this, you can learn a lot. And I recommend pick one philosopher. Pick one philosopher at a time and focus on them until you have kind of like a good idea of what they believed. And then move on to the next. But that gives me something to contemplate, man, something to comprehend, because I definitely see where the material people are coming from. But the material people basically say we should just submit to the elite because they know what's best and they are better than us. And they got where they are because they're smarter. And I don't see it that way, man. I believe that there are these metaphysical forces like good and evil. And the good is basically being tested. And this evil world ruled by Satan is like applying a pressure to the good where the good can grow and develop. You know, it's like weightlifting for the good. And, you know, Nietzsche talks about the heroes. He likes the pagan heroes, and he says they don't have the same values as Christ. Heroes were stronger than everyone, and they dominated, and they slayed, and they did violence, whereas Christ came in peace, and he was subjugated and murdered. In the modern system that we live in, we're not going to see the rise of a hero. You could almost try to say that, I mean, this is a really, really, really radical thought, bro. What would a hero look like? Okay, what, like, some super strong guy who takes a stand against the elite? I mean, what's that gonna look like, dude? Some guy strapped up with a bunch of guns, backflipping all over the place. Ha ha ha! See you later! Like backflipping and throwing bombs at freaking tanks. And I mean, it looks like one of these nutbags that you see on the news, dude. There's no heroes in the modern world. It doesn't work. But no, I mean, most philosophers hated Napoleon. I saw all these videos. Why this guy hated Napoleon? Why this guy hated Napoleon? You know, why Schopenhauer hated Napoleon? Why Hegel hated Napoleon? And then it was why Nietzsche loved Napoleon. Nietzsche didn't agree with like anybody, dude. He was a contrarian, totally. Woo! So, but now that's a little bit, that's taking it too literal. So a real hero is going to lead a resistance. But I think he underestimates the mind. When we're talking about somebody who has Christian values of peace, benevolence, mercy, someone who can inspire the masses speaking the truth, I think we need a mass awakening, bro. We need like just a lot of people to wake up. Any sort of like movement that tries to strong arm the society, it's going to get stamped out. It's going to be labeled radical. And the news will have all the normies thinking that these people were radical, unhinged, violent idiots. But anyway, That's pretty much it. I got a lot of insight from learning about Nietzsche. I've always kind of just, whenever somebody brings up Nietzsche, it's like, oh yeah, he said God is dead and he doesn't like Christians, and it's not really that deep. But his specific commentary on history, I found pretty valuable. Very hot take that Protestants saved Christianity from being destroyed. I would definitely like to hear Catholics try to defend the Medici family that was in the papacy. Really is starting to make me think. It's like, bro, you might just want to be Orthodox. Because I'm just really starting to wonder about if the papacy can even be defended, But I've been jerked around a lot, man. I'm just this little guy from a little town trying to figure it all out, man. I'm trying to figure it all out. I'm a slave morality. Well, there will always be those who take advantage of the pure-hearted. There will always be the dark triad snake person who tries to take advantage of someone's good nature. Does that mean that the world should just become a big snake pit and everyone should delete their good nature? Nope. It's a fine-tuning process. It's a sharpening of a blade. Figuring out how to be tempered and moral, but not be subjugated and dominated. I believe it inspires thinking, growth. Because, yeah, everything becomes a lot more simple if you just argue for the snake pit world of, like, oh, they're dark triad, and I'm better off being dark triad because I'm a target if I'm not. It's a numbers game. We need more people to be on Team Beyond. Because the kind of society created by Team Beyond, you see, the elite is also Christian. That's what I feel like Nietzsche also hasn't accounted for. There are kings who were very faithful Catholics who attended Mass with the peasants. Like, when you get a king striving to these Christian values, it makes for a very beautiful, peaceful society. But it is a very cruel, harsh world out there. This is kind of the truth of anime. This is like this beautiful truth. You watch this when you're watching anime. It's like, what is it about this show? Why do I feel like Dragon Ball Z is containing some sort of a truth so much deeper than so much other television? Because you have the benevolent warrior tempered by Christian values who is more powerful than the dark triad opposition. Someone carrying the torch of Christian values who strives for the real enlightenment of society, of peace, mercy, and love, but who stands against the wicked. And it seems like the hardest thing for theologians and Christian philosophers to reconcile with is Christian warriors. Well, how can you fight back as a Christian? How are Christians allowed to fight back? People say stuff like, oh, the Templars had to become Satanists to fight. You can't fight with Christian morals. Is that true? Is that the truth? Well, first thing that pops into mind for me is spreading the gospel across the four corners of the earth. People are going to try to stop you from spreading the gospel. The Bible wants Christianity to expand. And another place that Nietzsche was wrong is he seemed to think that Jesus didn't really want a church. Well, then why did he make Peter the Pope? And why did he instruct the disciples to go spread his word? He did want a church. Christ did want an institution. And that institution needs to spread that word at all costs. And if it's met with opposition, it needs to crush that opposition. Christianity was meant to subjugate and dominate the entire world so that we could live in peace. And I'm going to keep trying to figure out, why that is with like biblical arguments and whatnot. But it's like some sort of an anime where you're struggling against a totalitarian force. The bottom line is I need to figure out why Christianity is allowed to defend itself. And I'm confident that it is. But I already know that's the bottom line, even before the arguments are there. And at the end of the day, everybody cherry picks the Bible to try to figure out, why it should be this way or that way. Atheists will always cherry pick the Bible, telling us that we need to sit on our hands and die and be dominated. What I've already noticed is that it's not Christianity that's caused the West to die, that's caused the European spirit of the West to die. It was atheism. It was the military, intelligence psyops, the free love movement, sex, drugs, and rock and roll that is causing Western people to die, not Christianity. Western people thrived and were strong for a very, very, very long time under Christian values in Christian society. And what I feel like I've noticed is that the Bible doesn't seem to have that many instructions for the military. The Bible has instructions for the individual. But what about the government? What about the military? It would be very convenient if Christ had instructions directly for the rulers and the military. He says, "Render unto Caesar which is Caesar's." It's almost as if the military has to take on this burden of wickedness in order to protect the Christian nation. We don't know. We don't know. Gene was making the argument that he already came in the clouds during the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And I've been considering that. Basically, full preterism, which is kind of like a rare view, but the Catholic Church holds to amillennialism, which I find a bit more confusing than like post-millennialism, but basically the millennium was after the fall of the temple in 70 AD until about the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation. So the millennium is a 1,000-year reign of Christ. And after the millennium, the beast will be set free from the pit to deceive the world. Does it seem like we're living in a time of mass deception? It does. Does it seem like the devil has been set free from the pit to deceive the world? So, if that's what's going on, if we're post-millennium, then we're awaiting the final battle. And I can tell you this much, bro. When it comes down to like, oh, well, you know, how can you reconcile like a dominant military with Christianity? It seems like our people figured it out a long time ago. I mean, look at the Christian Roman Empire. Look at the world up until very, very, very recently. We had already figured it out. But I mean, as far as force goes, yeah, I mean, the military force of the United States is clearly dominant. But the subversion is happening from within the system, and I'm sorry, everybody, it seems to have something to do with white people. Like, white people are dying. Christian values support life. The values of marriage, chastity, pro-life, bearing children. This supports life. It, you know, you take a race of people and you give them Christianity, they get married young and they reproduce and they thrive and they survive. The depopulation agent is atheism. So all of these strong pagan white guys who, you know, are white nationalists, and Christianity didn't kill white people. That's the bottom line. And if I was to debate Adam Green, that would be the bottom line. I'd say, look, level with me, Adam. Do you believe that white people are being weeded out of existence? Do you believe that they're being killed? And why do you think that is? If he can say Christianity, I believe I would win the debate in a much more clear fashion than Jeem, who is all over the place and is kind of just like, you know, pop culture about Christianity, bringing up things like, oh, you know, the original texts were in Hebrew. What's the point? It's like, oh, you know, Christianity's not like Platonism. What's the point? I would make a very clear case for how Christianity is not what's killing white people. God has lifted his hedge of protection. Well, boys, I tried to contemplate again last night, and it wasn't a very good session. I almost feel like Nietzsche, like learning about Nietzsche, like killed my spirituality. And I sat there trying to contemplate. I was like, am I just an idiot sitting here with his legs crossed, like thinking about nothing for no reason? But I did get a couple of signs in spite of that. I came to the conclusion that today's stream was meant to show me a sign. If today's stream was completely dead, then I needed to take it as a sign to like put the stream on the back burner, like change my streaming schedule, stream way less. It's been a slow stream, I can tell you that much, but there are people here and my message is being heard. And I think ultimately the title of the stream is Went Deep on Nietzsche Last Night. I'm going to leave it up. I think I need to have streams with a topic that are more teaching oriented, that can be kind of left up as a VOD that serves a purpose. And I've had other streams like that in the past. And I think I'm going to delete a lot of VODs after this stream is over. Because this is an intellectual platform, boys. And I think sometimes I get sidetracked. And sometimes, you know, I don't know. I believe in what I'm about. I'm always wrestling with other worldviews and welcoming things with open arms. Interestingly enough, my strategy with philosophy is very much like my strategy with drumming right now, where I don't want to do hard work. I don't really want to like transcribe hard songs on drums. I want to like practice in a way where I have the best skill set to learn difficult songs as fast as possible without sitting there trying to transcribe it. Just like I want to build my philosophy chops to a level where I don't have to take a lot of notes for a debate, where I don't have to like write a bunch of things down and memorize things in a difficult manner. I just want to be well-rounded enough to where I could basically get into a discussion with anybody and make good points and win debates. Which I know that's not necessarily how things work. At some point, especially if you want to be successful, you always have to try hard. I mean, hard work is pretty important when it comes to being successful. I can tell you this much, boys. When I run into these accounts online, when I run into these people on 4chan who are doxing me and trying to spread this disinfo campaign about me, they're evil. These people are evil whether they set out to be or not. And it's a political evil. It's a military evil. But is there a history of evil in politics? Is there a history of government evil? Communism comes to mind. People starving to death. Democide. Governments making decisions that result in millions of deaths. There's a long history of wickedness in the government. And in my search for the truth, I believe that I've seen elements of the light in people, few and far between. But in this process of running into these smear campaigns and, you know, gang stalking and whatnot, I believe that I've bumped into pure evil. People willing to use their family as pawns. People lying. People like lying that I making up that I follow their children. I mean, people who will just lie. People who use lies as a weapon. People who will just slander me to no end behind an anonymous account. I struggle to find the light. I'm struggling to find the light. I've not met many pure people in this world. There's no doubt in my mind that people enlightened by the beyond, by the good, are few and far between. But I think you discover the metaphysical evil first. And I have discovered it. I have come across it. It has no mercy. It has no empathy. It's like the Gomorrah from the Never-Ending Story. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be reasoned with. It seeks to destroy me at all costs. And it will do anything in its power. It will lie. It will use its family as pawns. It will hide. It has absolutely no end or reason other than to destroy me. And it is pure evil. In my search for the truth, in my search to enlighten, I have discovered pure evil in the world. And it works for the government. Have a good one, Patrick. I'm sorry you were the weakest link. You've been here for a very long time. You never have any input. You come here and you say hi. Well, I've come here to say goodbye, my friend. I wish you the best. I remember the first time you ever popped up in my chat, you're saying, mod me, bro. Any final thoughts, my friends? I'm leaving in 2 minutes. I was supposed to be very, very, very critical of today's stream. I want feedback. I want people commenting on the topics. I want discussion. This is it. This is Philosopher Stoic. This is Philosopher Stoic. Like, I'm about something. I got a worldview. This is a platform. And looking through the results here, I'm going to continue streaming, but absolutely no more than the morning stream. The morning stream from coffee to drumming is the only stream I will do this week. I need to stop streaming multiple times a day. And I'm going to go skim through my VODs and delete a bunch of them. We need the important VODs. Jung's take on philosophers. I'll have to look into that. There's no doubt that I've always liked Jung more than Freud, but Jung seemed to be some sort of a Gnostic. All right, my friends, that's my time. I'm leaving this VOD up. I'm going to give it a special thumbnail to make sure that it's recognizable. I'm a serious dude, man. I'm trying to grow this platform. I'm trying to find like-minded people. It's very difficult. God bless. I will see you tomorrow, same time.